Good evening, everyone. It is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and tonight I'm going to continue my review of Danica McKellar's book, which is none other than, hold on, Math Doesn't Suck. And we're going to proceed on. And before I do, I wanted to let everybody know, if you're watching this video individually, separate from my live stream, yes, I'm conducting a live stream right now. That is why my whole thing's at an angle at the moment. But if you're not watching me on the live stream and you're just watching me on the regular video, I wanted to let you know that every one of these episodes, except this one at the moment, has a little card at the very top of the video, and if you click that card, it will take you to the next lesson in the Math Doesn't Suck series. Okay, now this particular video will eventually have a card as well. When I make the next one in the series, then I'll put up the next card. Okay, so it's coming, I just don't know when. Alright, so what's the topic of this particular chapter of Math Doesn't Suck? You had mentioned the purchase of clothing. Okay, if you are going to purchase clothing, you may want to calculate other things besides just the price. You may want to calculate the denier of the clothing itself, and here's the reason why. The thicker the denier, the more durable the outfit actually is. That's a fact. Okay. You also may want to calculate the stitches per inch, because if your clothing is sewn in a better way, it will be more durable. It'll last longer, and it'll be more valuable to you, because when clothing lasts longer, even though some of the stuff that is not done as well looks better, it only looks better for a very short period of time. When you have a good denier and you have good stitches per inch, the clothing lasts longer and it will be more durable. So it'll be more bang for the buck, so to speak. And another thing is, you may want to check out how you clean these articles of clothing, because the detergents you use, some of them can fade your clothing. And that's another consideration you should take into the price of your clothing. Because if you have to buy a whole bunch of special detergents to keep the clothes from fading, then that's going to add to the cost of your clothing. That's a fact. It won't add to it right away, but it will over time. And that's something you may want to think about when you're buying clothing. So those are things you may want to mention if you ever write another math book. Okay. Now, many people today, and I know this book was written, I don't know, almost a decade ago. I'm not quite sure the exact date it was written. I know I probably actually checked to see when this book was actually written. Let's see. It was written in 2008. Well, obviously it's now been, well, it's 2020, so it's now been 12 years since this book was actually written. Nowadays, not very many people that I know of personally, I would say that most of the people I know own smartphones. And that includes kids. I've seen kids as young as 10, 9, even 8 years old. They own smartphones. That's just the way they are these days. And so almost every one of these smartphones have calculators on them. As a matter of fact, I've been doing a series of videos on the Samsung J3 Orbit smartphone that comes from TracFone, and in this series I've been showing people how to use it. And if you guys want to know how to find those particular videos, let me know, and I'll show you in the description box or possibly in a comment itself, and I'll show you guys how to do that. But that's getting off topic here. But the thing is, the main topic here is many people today own smartphones. I don't know very many people who don't, to be honest with you. And almost all these smartphones have calculators on them. So some of the things you were saying in your book really don't apply today as they did back then. So, why turn a fraction subtraction problem into a fraction multiplication problem? Why would you feel anybody would have to do that? Nowadays, that'd be almost a waste of time. I mean, listen, you can take $50, multiply it by the decimal 0.25, and you'll get 12.5. So, all you have to do then is subtract 12.5, $12.50 from $50, and then you can find out how much the item actually was. In this particular case, it was be clothing. Okay? So, time to get the dry erase board out. Let me illustrate what I just said. You go to a store, and most stores will say 25% off, 35% off, 45% off, or whatever. But some stores will say, we're going to knock off 1/4 of the price off the clothing. Let's say the clothing was originally $50. So, and they're going to subtract a 1/4 of the price. Okay? Or should we say, really, that'd be a little more accurate. We're going to subtract a 1/4 of the price. So what are you going to do in that particular problem? Because it's kind of a word problem. First of all, you're going to divide 1 by 4. And that's going to equal 0.25. It's going to equal 0.25 just like that. And then you're going to multiply 50 by 0.25. And that's going to give you 12.5. Just as I stated earlier. Okay? And then you would just subtract $12.50 from $50, and you get $37.50. Just like that. You could do all this with a calculator. You don't need... and let me tell you something. In schools today, and this is absolutely true, in schools today, even if they do not allow the smartphone to be with the kid, the student, okay, then they will give them a tablet or a laptop. And whether you have a tablet or a laptop, you will automatically have a calculator on both of them. So they're going to have a calculator one way or the other. Alrighty. Just give me 1 second here. Survival on a Budget Made Easy says, hi everyone. Hello, Survival on a Budget Made Easy. Alright, so that is what I'm saying here. Okay? Now then, another thing. And this is also a complication. And here. Let's take this. Fine. I really don't know why you avoid the fraction terms divisor, dividend, and quotient. You should not avoid those things. It just shouldn't be done. So, we're not going to do that. Now, in a fraction, as you well know, and everyone should well know this, the dividend of the fraction is going to be divided by the divisor. The dividend divided by the divisor. You are correct in saying that this line should be treated as a division line. Okay, it'd be no different than if you had 2 dots like that. That's correct. Okay? Now then, in a previous video where I was talking about math doesn't suck, I actually said that when you have the actual division symbol, the dividend, I explained, was a stock term. Okay? This is something paid to you when a company actually makes money. They can actually pay all the people who own stocks of the company a certain amount of the profits from that company. Okay? That shows it's a healthy company. Now, alright, and I said we have Dr. Divisor. He's an evil megalomaniac. Okay? He wants this dividend, which is right now in the bank. Okay, we're gonna pretend that this division symbol here is a bank. The dividend is inside. Dr. Divisor is trying to get to that dividend. So what happens? Well, Captain Quotient shows up. There's Captain Quotient, and he stops Dr. Divisor from grabbing that dividend. It's that easy to remember. I just think, personally, this is my opinion, I think that what you're doing in your book is making things overly complicated when they could be a lot more fun. Okay, so and then in your own book, you publicly admitted that many students, just like I said today, have smartphones that have calculators, or they have calculators on their tablets, or the teacher just provides them with calculators, or they have laptops with calculators. You know, back in 2008, there were a lot of students in schools that had laptops with calculators on them. And if they didn't actually have those laptops, what they would do is they'd have computers in the classroom, and you go to your computer and you have your calculator. Or they would just give kids calculators. Calculators are most of them are dirt cheap. Now, I grant you, I will grant you, okay, this is a TRS-80. No, this is not cheap at all. But most kids don't get into the kind of mathematics that requires something like this. So, there you go. But the point is that it's rare to see an actual school which does not have the kids with either calculators, laptops, tablets, or even smartphones with calculators. You say so yourself. Alright, now you had shown 2 methods of mixed fractions later on in the chapter I'm talking about here. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, read the book. You'll find later in the chapter that I'm talking about right now with the mixed fractions, she proposes 2 methods. I recommend the second method over the first. It's a lot less complicated, and it'll be easier to remember. Okay? By the time students are learning about fractions, they have some idea of what, well, you know, you're talking about alcoholic bars. Okay? Anybody that actually lives in any kind of halfway town or a city. I mean, I live in a city, okay? I have driven past bars all my life. That doesn't mean I went to any of them, but I've driven past them, okay? They actually had a television series in the 1980s that revolved around a bar. It was called Cheers. Anybody remember that? Okay, so most kids today do know what an alcoholic bar is. Okay? So what we're going to say here, we're going to associate in our minds that endless decimals get drunk at bars. That doesn't mean we approve of that, but it's just the way it is. So, if you're going to illustrate an endless decimal, let's say 2/3 equals 0.6. Okay, so if we're going to illustrate an endless decimal, we're going to pretend that this decimal is getting drunk at this alcoholic bar. Notice that the decimal here is inside the bar, because if he's outside, he'd be on top instead of inside. Can you see that? That's a good way for these kids to remember this, even if we don't want them getting sloshed at a bar. Okay, this is just an illustration. This is a way for them to remember it in a clever way. Okay? Remember, only repeating decimals go to bars. All of the numbers, I would say all of the numbers, if they do go to a bar, they are not getting sloshed. They are the designated drivers. That's a better way to remember all this. Okay? So if there's no line above the number, and I'll show you what I mean by that, and we're just going to go with one of your illustrations because I figure that's probably the fastest way to do this. Let's say we have the number 7 divided by 12. Okay, so we have 0.583. We're going to say that the numbers 5 and 8 are designated drivers, and 3 is the one getting sloshed at the bar. So you don't want to put the bar over the 5 or the 8, because they're designated drivers. They're probably just waiting outside the bar, waiting for the slosh guy to come out and climb in the back seat. Isn't that a clever way for them to remember that? I think it is. Okay. Now, you said that all calculators, if they're doing a repeating decimal, at the end of the repeat, they'll round up to the next number. That is not necessarily true. I have, as I mentioned before, a TRS-80. And I guarantee you, if it tried to show a repeating decimal, it would not show that the last digit in that repeating decimal would be rounded to the next number. It just wouldn't do that. Instead, it would show a letter E and then some digit after that. That's what this one would do. So that is not entirely true. So that's something that you may want to correct in your book, because I have a TRS-80 and I'm telling you that doesn't happen that way. Alright? So, if you want to refute that, go right ahead, but I'm telling you, not all calculators take the end of the repeating decimal and round them up. It doesn't always happen that way. A lot of them do, not all of them do. Some of them have an actual letter E with an actual number right after that. So you may want to correct that in your book. That's not entirely accurate. Alright, now then, I want to thank you very much for watching this presentation, and I look forward to my next presentation, so I want you to stay tuned.